Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, my beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of The Big Break Show. I am here with my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, the midterm rental king, Mr. Jesse Vasquez. What's up, brother?
What's up, my friend? Yeah, man. Today was, we had a good episode today, man. We had Mr. Bill Faeth. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he is a powerhouse when it comes to buying luxury properties. This dude has been, Rafa, I mean, he was a professional golfer at one point, got a scholarship at 18, decided not to go to college, went all in on the golf deal that he got. And dude, he started building his own empire from, being an entrepreneur early on, creating something super similar to Top Golf. You know what I like most about this episode? We did talk about short-term rentals, but we talked more about a lot of mindset things of little tiny steps that you got to take daily, shifting the way that, you think about things, putting perspective behind, intention behind things. But dude, this was a great episode.
Yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy this. The biggest thing, too, is he talks about the importance of having coaches throughout all your entire life, sports, life, mental. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this. And if you do, leave a comment, share it, and give us a review. We really, really appreciate it.
We have Bill Faeth with us. Bill, I appreciate you for being here, man. I'm excited. I've been a big fan of yours for quite some time. And I'm actually, I'm on your mailing list. I get a lot of your mail, the mail that you get sent out. You do like these weekly blogs, which are pretty cool. It's kind of your thoughts and insights on what the market's doing or just your thoughts in general. So yeah, Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, like where you grew up, kind of just a background on Mr. Bill himself. Let's break that down, man.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me about the bank whisperer in my most recent email that I just sent out. I'm a born-again redneck. I live in just south of Nashville, Tennessee, by way of the most redneck town in all of America, Bakersfield, California. So I'm a California native, been here for 19 years, left California as an entrepreneur in the midst of the early 2000s, the rolling grayouts. Workers' comp state fund had 700 employees. In California, and literally in 28 days shut down the businesses, left California because of just what was going on from the political climate and everything. In that state, my wife and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. I've done a lot of stuff, had a lot of startups, a lot of bootstraps. I was drop shipping in 1992, 93, 94 from South American swimwear products to restaurants to short-term rentals, limousine company. I'm an ex-golf professional. I've done a lot of stuff, so probably not really good at any of it if I've done that much stuff over my life.
Or you've gotten really good at trying new things.
I mean, you know what? I love new things, and I kind of have, I get bored. So I've built 3 what I would call pretty large companies, over $30 million in annual revenue, one over 50. And I just don't like having, a lot of employees or, the last big business I built was a $12 million ground transportation company, and we had 92 employees. Today, then after that, I was in the limo business, right? So I built Limo University, and I had a marketing agency. If you've ever heard of HubSpot, I was their 33rd customer back in 2007 and kind of lived and breathed their ecosystem as I built my agency. But even at my agency, when we were doing about $3.5–4 million a year, I had 28 employees at my height. Now I have 1 employee. And my life is just so different. And this was pre-COVID. But for me, at least, I like having the freedom. I'm a lot older than you guys. I'm winding down at this point. So I intentionally in 2015 started architecting my life, which I think a lot of people have problems with, and taking control of what I really want my desired outcome to be. And it took a lot of this, a lot of gray hairs, I think to be able to get there, to be honest with you, because I couldn't do it when I was younger.
Yeah. What do you think that was, Bill? Why do you think you couldn't do that when you were younger?
I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody to guide me. I didn't have anybody to tell me the stupid shit that I was doing. So I had a full ride to UCLA. I was the 3rd ranked golfer in the world coming out of high school in Bakersfield, California. A guy named Nota Begay, who is making his senior tour debut next week. And he was, number 1, and a little kid I used to travel with named Eldrick Woods, was number 2 at the time. He was like 13. We were all 18, right? So, and I literally left after 4 months. I dropped out of school, full ride to UCLA to turn professional. I I started playing golf in the Big Brother program. My father left me and my mom when we were like 5. So I didn't have any issues growing up. My mom was a teacher. She made a good $30K a year back in the early to mid 80s. So we weren't on food stamps, but we didn't have any extra money. But I didn't have that father figure growing up. And one of the questions you're going to ask me later, I'll wait to share kind of who that first father figure was to really impact my life. But one of the things that I've experienced as an entrepreneur since my first entrepreneurial venture was when I was 17. And my mom was my guiding light at that point, right? And then when I dropped out of UCLA and I started some of my other businesses, I didn't really have anybody to talk to. And it's even today, I'm 49, and it's just within the last 4 or 5 years that I've shared everything with my wife. And I talk about this a lot is in the entrepreneurial journey, it's kind of like if anybody watches Survivor and they have this thing, or they used to have it called Exile Island, right? And somebody would get sent to the island all by themselves. And it's like, holy shit, I'm by myself. I don't have fire. I don't have food. I don't have all that stuff. Even when you're married and you're on your entrepreneur journey, and my wife is my best friend. She's my life partner, my business partner, everything to me. But you don't share all the bad shit. I can tell you I've had 3 instances where I stole from myself. One was like $5,000. Another was like 10, 15,000. One was over $20,000 to make payroll on a Wednesday that had to go in on Friday, paid our savings back as we were trying to grow and scale companies. So there was a gentleman named John Bairden that I hired to come and basically be the chairman of a mastermind group that I had started after I left an organization called EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. And the first thing he did was get us aligned with our spouses, set our goals, determine what our outcomes are going to be. And what I found out is, my MO, that was 42 actually. And he said, Bill, your MO is you start 3.75 businesses a decade. You're going to be 50 in like 8-9 years. He's like, are you going to start another 3 businesses and put your family through that? And at the time, my oldest daughter was like just getting into middle school. My youngest daughter was like, in 5th grade. And my wife, when we sat down and we built out this plan, she's like, we've got enough money. I'd like to see you at home more. Your kids would like to see you at home more. And then she said, do you realize we haven't been on a vacation in 7 years? I'm like, you're fucking kidding. No, we just did. And I couldn't name anything. So that was kind of a life defining moment for me. And that's when I learned from a gentleman that had been a CEO of 2 Fortune 500 companies that we have a choice. And if we sit down and intentionally be specific with what our outcome is, not, hey, I'm going to retire at X number of years and I want financial freedom and travel. That's what everybody wants. But let's distill that down to where we can keep score every freaking day. And that's what he did for me. And we've lived that intentional lifestyle with that desired outcome since 2015.
Wow. So you pretty much shifted your entire trajectory of how you're doing your business. And you know what? You brought something up, and I talk about this a lot, is entrepreneurship is lonely, man. It's really one of those things that it looks sexy on paper, it looks sexy on Instagram, but dude, it's a fucking grind. Like it really truly is. And you brought up your family, and this is something, I have kids and stuff. I have family. I have an 18-year-old daughter that's going to be 19 in a couple of days, a son that just turned 10, and another son that's 15. And I work from home a lot, but I feel like I have to pull myself into being present often because I don't have an office that I go to. Everything I do is here at home, but I'm like in something all day, and like there's no time frame for entrepreneurship. Like you can't just like, I guess you can clock in at 8 and you clock in at clock out at 5, but then there's all kinds of emails that come in. Bill, I'm barely learning how to like turn myself off. Like it's a struggle for me to do that. Like for reals. Like I have a hard time doing it. I don't know how. You know what I mean? Like truly, I just don't. I feel like I'm not doing stuff. And Rafa, I've talked to you about this before. If I have downtime, Bill, I feel like I'm not being productive. Like my brain literally just can't handle not doing anything. Like I just don't know how to do it.
I was in a very similar boat, and I couldn't relax. I couldn't sleep on vacation. I couldn't do, and a lot of us struggle with those things, right? And once you identify those problems and you sit down and I think a struggle for us is fathers and husbands, specifically as the alpha male, the one that's, we go out, we hunt, we kill. That's really the mentality. It's like a lion mentality as an entrepreneur, right? Especially for those of us that are successful. And then we want more, and we want to stock up, for the winter, for our kids and for our family. I thought I was doing the right fucking thing. I needed, at the time, I thought $250,000 was enough for college. It's not now. I need like $400K. And my oldest daughter wants to be a fucking surgeon. That could cost me $1 million. I would lay up at night saying, oh my God, I've only got 140,000 in her 529. What am I going to do to speed up this process? Because she was in 7th grade and now she's a junior. And if I hadn't hit that $400,000 mark, and I would lose sleep every single night. So I think I knew all this stuff. You know what to do. The thing we need is we need a coach. There's a gentleman named Michael Burt who lives about 30 minutes away from me. And I've had a few meetings with him and helped him kind of start his platform. And if you know who Michael Burt is, he's the winningest girls high school basketball coach of all time. And he's spoken at Grants 10X. And he has a motto that everybody needs a coach. He's the super coach, right? That's what he's branded himself as. And I believe that 100% that we all need somebody. There's a reason that Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs and Lee Iacocca, and we can go back into the 50s or 60s, all these great freaking CEOs and have a board of directors. There's a reason that these publicly traded companies have the board. That's their mentorship. And a lot of times they don't get along with people on their board, right? But we need somebody that can guide us. And most importantly was for me, I did whatever the fuck I wanted. The only person that could hold me in check was my wife. And, I was never, when I was young in my 20s, I was a partier, but I wasn't the partier. I'm not the guy that cheats. I'm faithful. I'm a Christian. I might cuss a lot, but I am a Christian. My wife and I have never had to go to a hotel or been in a big enough fight or, somebody's going to leave the house. We love and adore each other, but we just weren't on the same page, even though our intentions were correct. You have to have somebody point that out to you, right? So I look at a lot of people when they know my history and they meet me, they're like, hey, I want to play golf with you. I'm like, dude, I haven't played golf in 6 years. Oh man, you used to play professionally. You could go out and shoot 68, 69, even par, in your sleep. I don't think I could, if anybody's a golfer, I don't think I could break 80 after playing for 6 years, right? And in golf I excelled in all sports, but golf, if you don't have a coach, and it's really the only sport that we see to where coaches are on the range and walking with their players individually, right? Watching every single move so they can digest it, because it's impossible, because there's 1,872, moving parts in a golf swing for us to really self-manage and self-teach. So we need that coach. And I kind of believe that's the same thing in our life. And I do believe, Michael Burt, that we all need a coach, and we need somebody that can be, for us, we look for the people that have scaled the fastest or had exits as an entrepreneur, right? I think we need to be looking at who's a successful father and a husband first, and then who's been a successful entrepreneur from a financial perspective second.
Bill, now that you say that, I want to ask you, because there's different coaches for every aspect as you're bringing up, right? There's sports coaches, business coaches, life coaches. What coaches do you have in your life right now currently?
John Berden still as an example, probably the biggest. There's been 2 other huge influencers in my life, and one that I still have today. I don't talk to him near as much. I started an industry called Glow Golf. It was glow-in-the-dark miniature golf courses in shopping malls in 2003. And it came out of it was basically a pivot out of a business that failed, which was basically Top Golf before Top Golf. But it was more glow-in-the-dark, and I was the first one to literally strung a sheet up and put a projector, and we had these games that we would play football back and forth off of a laptop, and music and Bud Girls and all this type of stuff back in the early 2000s. And my partner sold his technology to Top Golf before they came to the U.S., which is kind of cool. But his name's Reg Booth, and he was the 3rd franchisee in 1968 into Pizza Hut. I call him the half B, 0.5 B. He was a $500 million. He's worth over $500 million. And I remember the first time I met him, he was driving a 1999 Lexus, wearing duck head pants, which are like $12.99 at Walmart, $9.99 mop shoes, lived in a $150,000 home in Wichita, Kansas, of all places. Kind of the whole Warren Buffett type of deal, right? Well, he was friends with Warren Buffett. And he's probably been the one of the biggest impacts in my life. He's guided me. He's taught me about the financial side. He one time was the president of the Mennonite Brethren. He's a devout Christian. And he's been through a life-changing experience. In 1986, he had his own plane, and he was flying from his house in Scottsdale, Arizona, back to Wichita, Kansas, and he crashed in the Rockies. and his wife and his 2 kids perished, and he survived. And that fundamentally can change somebody's life. And what happened after that crash was when he became even more successful as a Christian, more successful as a family man and a husband. He got remarried within, I think it was a year and a half, and even more successful once he put those first priority 1 and 2 ahead of business. Then he became more successful in business. And that's kind of what I've learned over this journey for me since 2015. I might have had some financial success, but I did not have the mentors that were teaching me about the back office, meaning the relationship with my wife, the relationship with Christ, the relationship with my kids. And I had to put that forefront because subconsciously I was bearing that in the back. Another gentleman, he's passed away many years ago, but his name is Buck Owens. He was on the show Hee Haw. That you guys probably have never even heard of it, but a lot of people consider him the godfather of country music from Bakersfield, California. And when I dropped out of, you asked me like about life-changing moment and a mentor, Buck was as big as it got. He was bigger than Garth Brooks. Let's put it that way. And he gave me $25,000 with no strings attached when basically my mom and my grandparents disowned me when I dropped out of UCLA in a free ride. They said, you're on your own. They were all in education, all teachers, all coaches. And if it wasn't for him taking me under his wing, letting me stay with him, giving me money to go out and play professional golf, but most importantly, teaching me, the lessons I needed to learn about life as an 18, 19-year-old on my own, where I had everything, literally everything in the palm of my hands, and I threw it away. I probably would be pumping gas or delivering Domino's pizza, today. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but my life would have been completely different. And I'll be really honest with you, Rolf. For me, over the last 3 years, my mastermind group, I have 88 people in my mastermind. That's probably been the biggest influence on me. I'm the leader, and I charge a lot for them to be in my mastermind, but I'm probably the biggest benefactor because I am surrounded by all of them every single day on Zooms, on phone calls and live meetings. And sure, they come to me for advice, but the power of being surrounded by people that are on the same journey, that are either behind you or in front of you, right? And you can learn just as much from people that are behind us trying to come up and catch up to us as we can for people that are in front of us. And I think a lot of people are mistaken to think that they have to be only around people that have already achieved what they want to achieve. And that's not true, because a lot of times those people behind us are scrappier than we are. There's no question I've become complacent, like talking about short-term rentals, because of what's happened. I mean, I've been in way before COVID, and it was fucking hard. And you know what? COVID, it was easy. I'm the marketing guy, all my shit set up, and I'm just crushing numbers like everybody else. Now I'm having to work hard again at it just to sustain what I had, right? So, and I see those people hold me accountable because we benchmark every month. Those people today are probably the biggest influence on my life.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I never really heard about, because you hear that online all the time, is, surround yourself with the, 5 people that are going to be, your most, whatever that saying is, you know what I mean? But I think you're right. Like I feel that that's really true. If you think about it, that you learn a lot from people that are trying to learn what you're learning, or surrounding yourself with people that are trying to level up in their space. Because a lot of times they have a lot more grit and tenacity than you do. Because, over time you get soft, man, over like doing these things for a while. And those people just have that oh, let's just get it done kind of stuff.
I got a couple of people in my mastermind, Jesse. One's a girl named Courtney Kepka. She's 24. She's going to retire by the time she's 30, like legit retirement, like not work for the next 45 years. And she's on pace to do that, which is really, she drives me. Ryan Bakey, who you guys may have heard of for the Learn Like the CPA guy, he was 23 years old when I met him. And he wasn't just in like the STR space. He owns a salon and a laundromat. Now he's building this massive, like, tiny home in yurt compound in Branson. And the guy, he's 24 now, but he was 23. Those 2 kids, I mean, I call them kids because I could have kids that age, right? But man, I mean, they're doing it completely differently than the way that I've done it, right? I want to know what's working for them and what's not working for them just as much as they want to know from me as the old guy. And it's kind of cool because I've always thought of myself as the young guy because I did everything early in my life, right? And now I'm the guy with the gray beard, but I get to sit back and I think I get to absorb even more because I more intentional, pay more attention to the younger people, if that makes sense.
You also get to see all the new stuff that's coming up, like in their generation as well, right? It's a big shift in terms of like time, and you get to see what's working for them and what they're trying out and things that you might be able to implement to your business. I love being around these mastermind groups where it's all different demographics of age, from very young people to very old people. Not to mention, like, it's really cool to see the young people who are super motivated and just go-getters. It's difficult to find that. Like you said, in my age, in my 20s, I was also out partying. And now when I see these kids that are 18 who are buying like their first apartment complex in my mastermind groups, I'm like, dude, that's crazy. Like 47 unit apartment complexes. And I'm like, just watching them, seeing them kind of motivates you as well, just to get further as well.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it also makes you think like, fuck, what was I doing when I was 18? Like, I wish I had the mentor. You know what's different, Bill, about the generation today is that you can get out of school, high school, and you can go spend $7K to join your mentorship, and you're going to get a fucking shitload more out of that mentorship over the next X amount of time. And everybody that's going to college, like I totally think college is great, but you can grab more information from a mentorship than you can necessarily college. If you're going to be like a doctor or surgeon, those are like totally different things, right? But I truly feel that. And I think that this generation is now looking at it in the sense that I can go take somebody's course. I can learn how to create, clips. Like, I think that's a new thing. Like, somebody can just grab, create clips for you, Bill. Like, be able to put these YouTube things together, all that stuff. That's people can literally go take a class and learn how to do that and make thousands of dollars and actually create a legitimate, huge business out of that.
I agree with you. It's ironic you bring that up, Jesse, because I just had dinner with just me and my oldest daughter, who's 16. She's a junior. She's excelling as a goalkeeper in travel soccer, well enough to where if she wanted to, she could probably play at a lower level D1, but definitely D2. And she doesn't want to play soccer because she wants to become a surgeon. And I'm kind of half joking with her, but half planting the seed at dinner. And my wife would kill me because I haven't even told her this yet. But I'm like, are you sure you want to go to college? Are you sure you want to become a surgeon? Because if you decide that you don't like being a surgeon after daddy has to spend $750,000 for you to become a surgeon, you have no other skill set, nothing to fall back on. Number one. Number two, what if I told you I would give you $500,000 to literally go and learn whatever you want to learn on your own because you're so freaking smart, and then start your own business? And I'll even fund the business. We'll start 75-25. I own 25%, you own 75. I'll give you another 200,000 to start your business, whatever you want to do. And she's like, what? I don't understand that. And I didn't expect her to, but it kind of like blew her mind. And she's like, you don't want me to go to college? I didn't say that, honey. I just want to give you options. Because I don't want to say I'm anti-college, but I sure as hell don't want to have $500,000 in student loans, saddling my oldest daughter when she's 30 years old and then have it still be $300,000 when she's 45. How do you pay those fucking things off making $150,000 a year? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it's such a unique time. And, somebody that's 18, like, she probably knew she wanted to be a surgeon like super early on and young in her life, I'm assuming, right?
That's the only thing that she's wanted to be as a surgeon.
Yeah. And see, like, I think that's like an exception, but typically, like, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do when I was 18. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to do until I was like in my 30s, man. Like, I didn't know. Like, my 20s, Bill, were like, how we physically go through puberty when we're, 15 to 18 or 16 or whatever it is. My 20s were my mental puberty. Like, I was trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do. I was in a job where I was in sales. I was extremely good at it. I didn't like kissing people's asses. That's what I did. But I did a lot of good things in the healthcare industry. Like, I was able to really grow in that space, but I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, man. And I think that, nowadays you can get into space, and people that are 18, 19, like, they don't know what they're going to do. 20s, they don't know what they're going to do yet. And if they do decide, they could try a bunch of different shit out and still have enough time by the time they hit 30 to actually, like, get a career going or a gig going. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. I'm 49. I still don't know what the fuck I'm going to
do. Yeah, dude. I mean, I just got out of healthcare at the age 39. Last year, I left healthcare. I left my W-2 job, and I was 39. So, like, I think anybody could do these things. You just have to kind of align what you want to do and put intention and energy behind it. and, surround yourself with people that are, just like you mentioned, that are doing things or that are heading in the same direction as you, whether above you or behind you. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I wanted to ask some STR questions because I'm curious as to how you ended up in the space, Bill. I mean, you're talking about all these awesome businesses that you've started and stuff like that. Like, what made you jump into STRs? Like, how did you get into that?
That same year, 2015, it's like ironic because it's almost to the week. Next week is our fall break here. We were in Seaside, Florida, having, if anybody's been to 30A, there's a little pizza shop there on the beach side of 30A, and having lunch with a guy I call Wee Wee. He calls me Six Pack, not because I had six pack abs. I might have drank a beer or two too many back in the day. He was at my wedding, and he was one of my groomsmen. Well, him and I played professional golf together in around the States and in South America for a couple of years back in the early 1990s. And my wife said, hey, it sure would be. We made a little bit of money. What do you think about, potentially getting, a beach house? I'm like, that'd be cool. Let's talk to Wee Wee. So we talked to Wee Wee. So Wee Wee, if anybody knows the Destin Miramar Beach area, his family owned the Frangista Beach Inn. They tore it down after the millennium. He built like literally $600 million worth of houses and townhomes. Now he owns over 100 in the area currently, and he manages about 300 to 400 in that area. So he knows the market really well. And I didn't know anything about short-term rentals, except for I was battling Uber for the last 3 years in the ground transportation space. And I lived every Tuesday at city council meetings in Nashville. So, going against Uber and Lyft and all the TNC regulation because I was in the ground transportation space. And I saw these bills that were coming in for these, short-term rental stuff. And they were all referred to as like Airbnb bills because nobody gave a shit when it was just Verbo. But once Airbnb came in, everything changed in the urban areas. So I asked Wee Wee, I said, hey, what do you think? He's all, well, how much money do you have? I said, I don't know. Bria's like, hey, I just want to be able to see the ocean. I want to hear it. And I want to be able to smell it. And okay, Wee Wee's like, well, that's either beachfront or tier 2 with a view. And he's like, you have a couple mil? I'm like, no, I got like $127,000 for a down payment. He's like, okay, so you can afford probably a $500,000 to $600,000 property, depending on 20% or 15% down. He's all, you're too poor to buy here. Go over to the west a little bit, about 4 hours, and check out Gulf Shores, Alabama. He's all, you can afford to get someplace there. And I'm like, but she wants to be here. And so literally when we left lunch, he drove me like 5 blocks away. He's all, this house right here is like $585,000. It's the houses, that are 5 blocks away that are, 1.5 million today or 1.7 million. So I went to Gulf Shores and we had 9 houses that we were going to see. I'd found one online that hit the market the day before we were flying down there. I lived in Nashville at the time. It was land in Pensacola at 9 a.m., catch a 5:45 flight out that day. So we had about 3.5 hours in Gulf Shores after the drive to and from. And we went and saw the house that I found the day before, just hit Zillow or whatever it was. And that was the one we ended up buying for $627,000. Had a really shitty experience with a property management company. Very similar to what I think the mistake a lot of people make is the realtor in a vacation rental market is always associated with, a property management company behind them, right? So, oh yeah, hey, I'll go with this company, which is now owned by Vacasa. And they weren't transparent. They couldn't answer it. And, I at the time I had a $3 million marketing agency. Hey, what are you guys doing for SEO? What are you doing have you ever heard of Facebook ads? They were so new back then. What are you guys doing? Google PPC, Google My Business, any of that shit? No. And the house that, I have a case study in my Facebook group that literally I took a $45,000 property and turned it into a $100,000 property. Fired them after 90 days, took over, and just started learning how to self-manage all on my own. It was pretty freaking easy, to be honest with you. I don't think it's that challenging, especially back then. So the key that I learned, Rafa, in that market, that was in Fort Morgan, Alabama. So just on the west of Gulf Shores. I'm so glad I did not start in 38. I don't own in 38. So I now own and manage 9 properties in Gulf Shores and the Fort Morgan area. And still, it's gotten a lot better. But I like to invest, and I learned this literally with that very first property, into markets that are underserved by high quality hosts. So one of the things I look at is I want to know, like, what's the average star rating, in a market. So that's where I got started, and that's why I've invested in places. I stay away from the Destins. I stay away from, the Smokies. That's why I've got a few $1 million invested into Western North Carolina. The hosts suck there, compared to how challenging if any of us go into the Smokies, it's like $50K, just in the garage alone to, build out the game room. And if you got enough room, you got to put in another 50 to 100 in an indoor mod pool, and all that type of stuff. It's too competitive. So I try to find, in the evaluation processes, the areas that are going to be more underserved by hosts. And it was all because of that learning experience there. And I think William Wilson, literally we chat almost weekly. And I just said, man, thanks for not letting me invest into your market, because my whole vision would probably be different.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that part. And I've always been the person that's like, find a space that's not where everybody's going. But also, it sounds like, Bill, like your first short-term rental was attached to your why. You wanted to have something near the beach and near the water. Is that how you do most of your investments? Is like somewhere that you actually want to be, or is it just the underserved, professional?
So part of it for us when we first started was we had just defined what our outcome was. So I'm 49 at the time. I was going to retire when I was 60. That's now moved up. I'm going to retire in about 4.5 years because of a life event, not just financially, right? And the life event is my youngest daughter, who's in 8th grade, will be done with, high school at that point. I'm probably semi-retired now, essentially, right? We started building our portfolio based on where we wanted and how so one, we defined retirement, like literally wrote everything down. What does it mean to us? What do we want to do? Okay, well, how much is that going to cost? Where are we going to live? All these things. And then we're like, holy shit, we're going to move around from our STRs. From here to Colorado to Montana to Scottsdale, our lake house that's down by Birmingham, Alabama, the mountains, all those things. And we'll just stay, a month or 2 months at a time and just move around. And then we thought, holy shit, we forgot. Where are our girls going to come? Where's our home base? Where are we going to spend Christmas? Where are we going to spend Thanksgiving? And where are we going to put their shit? So now we had to really map out. And there's something that I think a lot of people miss when they're building their portfolio or even an individual property is they don't think about a master plan, like a master plan community, right? So I've done some commercial development, just like I've done, residential development. And you have to have the overall master plan. And if you have some chinks in that armor, or most importantly, you make changes halfway through that master plan, that can cost you significant amounts of dollars. So we put together our master plan, and it kind of ties into my financial system as well. And this is just for me personally. This isn't for anybody else. And you can attach to it or you may not. So I have 35% of my portfolio has no DSCR, no 1031, no cost segregation, no tax ramifications touched to it. And those are my lifestyle assets. Those are the houses that we're going to move around in 4.5 years. The other 65% may or may not have 1030. It can, I should say, have a 1031. It can have a cost seg done to it. Those, and a couple of them have DSCR, so they have the prepayment penalty on the back end as well. So I segment that from a safety, just like, kind of looking at a diversified stock portfolio. Now they're all in different markets too. I'm at the beach, I'm at the mountains, I'm at the lake, I'm in a golf area, I'm in the mountains in another part of the country, on the West Coast and the East Coast. So it's not all in one market. And that way, if I factor in my house I'm in now, which today is worth about 1.8 million, I owe 280 something. So I've got another 1.5 million. I look at that lifestyle part also with no tax burden, no extraordinary tax burden, right? If I had to sell, and I've got a tremendous amount of equity. So I put bigger down payments on those assets as well. 25, 30. One I even did 37%. And that was on my largest property that I've ever purchased at 1.6 million for a single family home. So for me, that all ties into that master plan of when I'm going to retire, what are we going to do when we're retired, where are we going to live, how much cash flow do I need, how much debt am I comfortable with, and most importantly, what happens if COVID happens again? What happens if the sales and loan crisis happens again? What happens if the stock market crashes like it did in the early 2000s or 1999? Again, I've lived through all of those. And it's like right now, I'm probably more prepared than I've ever been for what potentially might happen in 2023, because we've never had 6 or 9 months of warning that an impending recession is coming, right? It's like, here's COVID, here's, 2008, basically from September till December is when our entire world, crashed. But now we've had these warnings, and I've modified a little bit. So one thing I believe in is that when you create a business plan, you create a life plan, you need to document it, you need to write it down, but it either needs to be in a Google Doc that you can easily modify and both you and your spouse can have access to at the same time, or you write it in pencil so you can erase it and be able to modify. I think it's more about the exercise than it is having it documented. For us, that becomes really important, and that really impacts every single decision that we make on the investing side.
I absolutely love that, man.
Yeah. I was gonna jump into this because I've been asking everybody right now, and I'm even in this space where, what are you doing right now with buying properties? Are you waiting? Are you have cash kind of sitting around? Are you still purchasing today? What's your thought rolling into this because obviously the prices of properties are going down, right? We see that it's happening now. Interest rates are going up. This is just what happens when you pump trillions of dollars into the economy. It needs to go somewhere. Something has to give, right? We're seeing the stock market starting to drop. We're seeing house prices going lower. We're seeing, the short-term rental that operators are now losing income. They're not getting what they were getting in 2020. They're not getting what they were getting in 2021. So the numbers are changing. So what are you doing right now? Like, what are 3 things that you could say to position yourself as a short-term rental operator? Or what are you doing right now to set yourself up so that you're, not losing money?
So I would say that I believe in Gestalt, meaning I'll give you an experience share as opposed to giving advice, because I don't know. I believe in knowing and being known, right? So the one thing I hate are these people that are in our position that are reckless with advice when they don't know what the goals are of the people listening or that we're talking to. They don't know what their current financial situation is. There's a lot that goes into giving some advice and investing into anything. So I can tell you I've got more cash on hand than I've ever had in my life. I literally have $1 million, 987,000 to be exact. And actually that might have pushed over literally today with Airbnb and Verbo sending payouts. Pretty close to $1 million ready to go. I have not pulled the trigger since April of this year. It's the longest drought I've gone without buying a piece of real estate since 2018. Like everybody else, I would say probably in the first 7, 8, 9 weeks, very similar to the reaction that I had with when COVID hit in February 20, kind of like, what the hell is going on? People are freaking out. I had a really good friend pull $500,000 out of the stock market, lost his ass, immediately, like first week, second week of March, put it back in May. So I've kind of taken a wait and see approach, and I've hoarded my cash. I'm not opposed to buying $1 million property at 9%. I think it's a reset. And the hard part here is I'm in the early stages of building $1 million or $100 million syndication. And the good thing is I don't have to raise the money. So the equity is coming from a fundraiser that I'm working with. But it's still really challenging because a lot of that's multifamily, right? And that requires a reposition. So even the most recent, hike a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, almost a week and a half ago, of 75 basis points, that doesn't scare me. What gives me caution to be very observant to is the 2 years that they're not going to lower. They flat out said we're not lowering interest rates for 24 months till 2024. So how the hell do I buy a $2 million apartment complex, a motel, ARV it, and then I can't reposition, right? But if I have enough cash to be able to hold on to get to 48 months, 60 months, and the numbers still work to where I can cash flow, then I may not even, I don't have to go from like 2 million to 3 million, or 4 million in ARV to reposition. All I need is like a 2%, rate adjustment, and then I can reposition. So if I can get a 20%, a 30% discount right now, if I'm in the cash position to be able to do that, then it's a really great fucking time to buy. But I want to just really be clear. If you do not have the financial means to have at least 12 months of runway. And if you want to be risky, you could do 6 to 9 months, but you better be able to do every penny of the carry costs. So I'm a very conservative guy. A lot of people see what I've done and how many startups I've done and blah, 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 blah. You know what? I'm a very conservative investor. And for me, I think it's buying time. I will buy some properties on my own. I'm mainly looking at multifamily right now to where I can reposition differently. I'm really concerned about people that are still buying $1 million plus single family homes right now, because I think there still could be another 15, 20, 30% dip, to happen in their equity position. And that's going to be really challenging to recover, because the only thing that's going to recover that is interest rates going down in another buying cycle like what we've had to be able to recapture that quickly. Or you could be looking at 5, 7, 10 years to be able to make that up. We're not going to see, man, in 2021, holy shit. I was flipping and investing. I bought 9 homes in Gulf Shores, Alabama alone. And I sold 7 of them. I had a net add to my portfolio of 2, made almost $2 million just off of those homes because they were appreciating at 3 to 5% a week. And then I was holding them for 45 to 60 days to take in, the rent. I had one property that did like $57,000 in 45 days of rent on top of, the equity increase at 3 to 5% a week. So we're not going to see that stuff, probably never see that again. We're not sure as hell not going to be able to buy at 3%. So there's one thing that I think is really abnormal that we've never seen. Inventories are lower now, right, for availability, especially new home construction. Interest rates are skyrocketing, and it's because everybody that has, 2.5% to 4% or 4.5% interest rates are holding, right? So I think we're going to see inventory, but potentially even continue to shrink. The question is what's going to cause people to flood the market and to liquidate? It's going to be a bad financial, situation that they're in. And I do believe that's coming. And then that's when somebody's going to have to fire sale, right? So I don't like being an opportunist. And I think a lot of people shame people that are opportunists, but it's going to be the best buying opportunity I believe that we've ever seen in real estate after the election is over. I think from the second week of November, probably through March, maybe even into April or May, we're going to see the best opportunities to be able to buy. So if we can back it up and sustain those higher interest rates, I think we can get some really sweet deals over the next 6 to 7 months.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I've been looking at property rough, and I looked at a couple, and like I'm a little worried about paying, 6.5% as an or 7% as an investor right now. I'm really, and when I'm buying something, I'm looking at, I'm expecting this to drop by 15%.
Yeah. Are you talking single family, multifamily?
Yeah, single family. I don't own any multifamily. I want to. I think that's where my head's going now. But like I've been in the STR. I do a lot of midterm rental stuff. So like the multifamilies would be perfect. I do everything that I've done has been single family. So I definitely want to get into the multifamily space, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there too.
I've seen a couple of smoking deals at literally like 1.5 to 2.5 in the single family space that I know I can go in, even projecting a 15 to 20% drop in rental income. I do care about the equity, but taking another 15 to 20% drop. And I don't think I'll get there because I do all this stuff to sustain. I'm actually still up 11% year to date over last year, but I'm working 3 times harder at it. It's the equity that scares me, right? And I can't buy $1.5 million property today and take another 20%. So I'll just give you a real quick example. Riven Capital Group is the name of my syndication. It might be the first time I've ever said that publicly, actually. We had a motel, 21 units, and we had an offer of $1.3 million. And it went through 2 cycles, right? Two rate increases. And then last Thursday was not the Fed, but banks raised their rates the most they've ever done in the history of banking, right? So we're now looking at close to what we thought was going to be 7.25. We're at close to 8. The only way we can make that deal work is to go from 1.3 million down to about 935. So now the pressure's on the seller because he's fucked. It's not us. We can walk away. So the question becomes to the seller, and this is, if you said you're on my email, that's all John. If you saw my Bank Whisperer email yesterday, he's dealing with him. And we've been able to get locked in at prime, like probably 6.75 if we can close in the next 60 days. But we're showing him 8.25, because that's what everybody else is getting, right? So we're showing him the performance. It doesn't work. Doesn't work as his current model. Doesn't work at our model. Nobody's going to fund it, right? So either you got to hold on to this for the next 60 months, or you need to sell to us at our number, and we've got no wiggle room, unfortunately, right? So I think we're just, if we're the buyers, we're gonna. I don't like the word hardball, but I think we have to educate the seller to understand the position that they're in if we want to try to get those significant discounts to make those numbers work, right? Because if you're a disciplined investor on your performa, whether you're looking at 20% cash on cash or 15% cash on equity, whatever, however you calculate it and you stay disciplined to it, it's just really simple by inputting the data. And then hopefully the seller or your agent, if you can't communicate directly with the seller, is good enough to be able to explain that. That's what we're seeing, at least. But I mean, that's a huge deal. In like less than 90 days, we're literally asking for almost a $400,000 credit, or else we have to walk. And I think we'll get the deal done, actually.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this doesn't air before the guy that can potentially do this deal listen to this.
Well, nobody knows where it is, so he won't know. The seller doesn't even know who I am, so I stay behind the.
All right, there you go. Then he's like, Bill I just heard Bill say that they're at a 6.5 or 6.6. But you know what, man? I think that's smart. And I think that a lot of a lot of the sellers are used to the numbers that they seen 6 months ago or a year ago. It's like they're still expecting to get that right now. And I don't, and we're seeing this. If you look on Zillow or Redfin, I like Redfin. How many price reductions are you seeing, especially on properties that are like the higher end homes? In my markets, I'm in the Central Valley. I'm by Modesto. I know where Bakersfield's at. You probably know where Modesto is. We're part of the same agriculture area. I was born and raised in Turlock,
California.
California.
I used to go up to Cal State Stanislaus when I was a golf coach at Cal State Bakersfield. We'd play up there all the time.
Yeah, man. I grew up right around the corner from Stan State. Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing all these price reductions right now, and I'm actually now, Bill, I message realtors that are properties that are sitting over 90 days, and these are like more higher end homes. I just messaged somebody yesterday. I'm going to probably be able to sell or finance a property that's an STR, like would kill in Lodi, California. I don't know if you ever know where Lodi's at.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's called Little Napa now. This place is 700,000, killer place, and the owners are willing to sell or finance because they just need cash. They can't sell the property. Beautiful home, and they just can't get rid of it. So I think that's also another way that a lot of people, if you have the time and energy to call these people and connect with them, or use PropStream, connect with the owners somehow, that's another way to do it creatively. And we're seeing this now, like, Pace Morby, all these guys that are doing the seller finance stuff, that's becoming a huge thing. But there's a lot of opportunity in that because you don't really necessarily have to put a ton of capital into it. I mean, sometimes you might have to, but
I mean, you can also get them to carry back, right? If they can give them a little bit more up front, let them carry back. So that way, if you're doing any type of financing, if they can't, I mean, a lot of people don't understand, and you may know this better than most, for with you guys, is if you can get them to do a portion on the seller finance, if they're not willing to do the entire dollar amount, if they want 700, give them 800, but pay down principal only, like it, no interest. There's a lot of creative ways to be able to do these deals today. That's actually something that I think somebody needs to do some educational pieces on, or literally what are the creative ways to be able to finance these deals as we're going into a down economy like this.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I'm actually seeing too, I just recorded a YouTube video. I haven't posted it yet, and Rafa, maybe I talked to you about this. I'm seeing so many flippers, Bill, that have been flipping homes for the last freaking 10, 15, 20 years. They're coming to me now saying, hey, Jess, I'm going to be holding probably 50% of my flips now. I want to midterm rent them, or I want to short-term rent them. Do you mind taking these over? We know that the next 16 months, 18 months is going to be a bloodbath. I don't know what we're getting into. So as short-term rental operators, if you're looking to, start a property management agency, you're already managing your own, like there's going to be a huge, huge opportunity for these guys who are flipping that still want to make cash, because that's what they need. They need cash flow. they're used to getting these big giant chunks of cash that they know they're not going to get anymore, and they're starting to hold stuff. I don't know if you're hearing that too, but that's what I'm seeing a lot in the Bay Area, here in the Central Valley. I talk to people all day long, and that's what a lot of these flipping guys are telling me, that they're just going to start holding property.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things to maneuver and to kind of switch over into. I want to ask you this real quick. What's your portfolio what's it look like right now? What's your, everything that you're carrying, you're holding? You have long-term stuff too?
Everything I own is single family homes. Single family homes, drive-in markets, diversified across the country from Arizona to Colorado, Alabama, North Carolina. I also have 9 properties that I co-host, and they're all high-end luxury properties as well. So I think one of the things that I looked at early on is I didn't want to invest into smaller properties that were doing $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year in gross rents. And I definitely don't co-host those as well. When I started co-hosting, it was $100,000 or more. Now it's like $175,000 or more, just because my time valuation has gone up. And for me, on my owned properties, I've hit my number of $800,000 a year in income. So now if we add something, we have to shed another property, right? So I've actually lowered, from the time that we all first chatted on Clubhouse a year and a half ago, my property portfolio has shrunk. Once again, very intentional, tied to my plan. I'm not looking to have 100 fucking doors. I don't want that. I was in Miami with Sjogren, for our little retreat thing that we did a few weeks ago, and he's got like a 52 room motel that he's purchasing, which is going to take him to almost 100 doors combined. But he's also like 14, 15 years younger than I am, right? So he can, make some good money over that time before he's ready to start slowing down. Once again, I think that comes back to knowing and being known about everybody's situation is completely different. So my portfolio, kind of like we talked about earlier, it's been built strategically for the outcome that I've desired 5 years from now, right? And so a lot of that is, and one of the reasons I'm doing the fund, I shouldn't call it a fund, the syndication right now, is because that's a 4 to 5 year plan, right? And then that will be an exit. And I'm tied in with, the hedge fund guys and the private equity guys. They're raising the equity, and then they'll be the ones to manifest the exit. So I'm kind of for one of the very first times I'm building a business based on the exit, right? And it's got to be tied right into my timing of when I'm ready to sunset. So if I was to buy, I probably will never buy personally multifamily, because I just don't want to I self-manage everything myself. I don't have VAs. I don't my wife doesn't manage. Chris that works for me doesn't. I mean, they all help in their own ways, but for me, like 90% of it, maybe 95% of it is me. That's meant from my co-hosting to our own portfolio. In the capital group, that's a completely different ballgame. I will have my fingers all over it. And the first 2 properties we're getting ready to close on, which are both multifamily, I will manage those properties. So I can't go out and continue to buy myself, if I'm going to add, 40 doors, in 2 properties, and I'm going to do that. But the plan is to scale. The same with the co-hosting business. The plan is to build that up, not to 20 or 40 or 50 or 100 properties, get it to the number of revenue and EBITDA, right, to where it does become acquirable. Or my specialty is I create an annuity for myself, right? I give that to Chris, who works for me, and say, hey, Chris, take this over, and, boom, you can have 80%, and I'll just take a 20% annuity. And it won't happen that fast. That'll happen over time. But like Chris, who works for me, he's got his hands in almost every one of my cookie jars. He's earned it, right? So that's part of it. I go back to like one of my early companies that I started was Bulldog Auto Detailing in Bakersfield, California. And I started it literally to help fund myself when I dropped out of UCLA, and got a van and got the trailer and got the, the water tank and all the stuff. Well, one of my lifelong friends, John, has been running that since 1994, maybe early 1995. And now I own 10%. He owns 90, and I get a check every single month. There's nothing better than that. That's why Mr. Wonderful loves, royalty deals in perpetuity, right? So I kind of look at the same thing. That's also part of my retirement plan. And that was what my first big exit was. Aqua bikinis. I was drop shipping Brazilian swimwear, sarongs, beachwear, that type of stuff from a family that I'd stayed with. A family of 12 family members were hand making this stuff in a small town outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil, about 25, 30 miles outside of it. And I stayed with them 2 years in a row. And this will be funny if anybody's a web developer, has an e-commerce business. $192,000 it cost me to build my first e-com website in 1993. And that literally I could build on Spotify in about a day and a half for like $1,500, today. And that was kind of one of my big deals that kind of shaped my life. Is I didn't really know enough about business at that time. I mean, I'm literally 21 years old, and I had a company called Venus Swimwear come and want to acquire me. And we went through LOI. We went into, thank God, my best man at my wedding was my CPA. And I'll never forget this. I had a $2.8 million cash offer, or I had a royalty in perpetuity. And of course, at 21, and I was a big gambler. I'd fly over to Vegas and play golf and, gamble. I loved playing blackjack and hanging with those old guys over there. And
Hanging with John Daly or what?
no, it wasn't that bad by any means. That guy's a legend. I was just a legend in my own mind. But he convinced me to take the royalty. And I think about, man, at that age, like a lot of, sports people that get money quick, I probably would have blown through it, but now I still have it, which is kind of cool. And that's been very beneficial. So I kind of followed that model instead of exit. So I've done over 30 startups. I've only exited 17 times. And out of those 17, 6 of them have had, some type of annuity or lengthy buyout process to be able to try to create an annuity with it. And that's what I'm trying to do with my short-term rental business and my hosting business as well.
I love that, dude. It's funny because I started doing kind of similar to you. I have a question before we segment here because we're getting short on time. So we always ask these 2 questions at the end, but really quick, who helped you with this whole plan of yours? Was it just you and your wife who sat down to do it yourselves, or did you actually have someone sit down and help you, guide you through this?
So that was a guy, that John Bairden that I mentioned earlier. He was, he was in the real estate business. I mean, he's now an angel investor. He's an entrepreneur. He's probably 70, 71.
All right, Bill. So this show's called The Big Break. We always ask everybody in this space, what was your big break? Whether that's something in your personal life, a business opportunity, let us know what your big break was.
Yeah, I would say my big break was when I was literally at a tin cup type of driving range, giving golf lessons for a living after I played professional golf. Read an article in the USGA Journal about this thing called Glow Golf, which was a driving range game application in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I reached out to them only because there was a guy named Kyle Hogan. I was a big historian for golf, and Ben Hogan was my idol at the time. So I figured maybe the guy's related. I'll reach out to him and have a conversation. Long story short, he drove from Phoenix to Bakersfield the next day, was waiting for me when I opened the range at 7 a.m. It was really cool that him and I met because we ended up starting a driving range game, which is now kind of like Top Golf. I had a very successful business in Bakersfield, but we couldn't replicate it anyplace else. Long story short, that's how I met my business partner in Glow Golf, Reg Booth, who kind of transformed my entire life. We created the glow-in-the-dark mini golf course business, and that was in shopping malls around the country, had about, over 100 of them at one time. He's been just a tremendous influence for me, kind of taught me almost everything I know about entrepreneurship. I definitely wouldn't be here on the Big Break Show today if it wasn't for Reg.
Dude, I love that. I've actually seen one of those glow in the dark. I wanted to check it out, actually. There's one up the street from my house, maybe like 5 miles from here, and I was like, I wonder who came up with that. That's crazy. I'm pretty sure it's one of yours, right?
I don't know. Where is it, in a mall? What city?
It's in Buena Park. I think it's in Buena Park.
It could be. So there's Monster Golf brand. There's a couple of other brands, Putting Edge, that have all started, but we were the first ones to kind of pioneer that back in 2002. We were, a lot of people think that you got to do everything high end. We were the Chevy, we were the Yugo of that business, but we were able to scale really, really quickly with very high profit margins.
I love that.
Yeah, that's cool. Crazy. I didn't realize you had 100 of them at one time. That's scale, man. All across the nation. That's fantastic. Bill, so one of the other questions we asked
that was pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. Yeah. Hey, man. So an actionable step that somebody could take right now after listening to this episode, whether that's making some phone calls, what would be something that you could tell somebody that, or not tell them, but give them opportunity to do something, whether in the short-term space, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, an actionable step?
I think I'll give you two things if that's okay. One, determine what your outcome is, and anything that you're moving towards, right? Whether it's getting out of a W-2, whether it's retirement, whether it's a weight loss journey. If we don't define that outcome and it doesn't become measurable, then typically we're going to fail and we're not going to be successful. If you're on the entrepreneur side, could be in the real estate side, short-term rentals, bakery, gas station, whatever, you need to have an intimate relationship with your financials. So if you can't interpret, you don't understand a P&L, you don't understand a cash flow report or a balance sheet, and you're in business, just go on YouTube, go to quickbooks.com and take some of their free classes. Just learn, one, how to create them, and two, how to decipher them. Because if we don't have that information, in my opinion, we can't make sound investment decisions.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. The books are a pain in the ass, but you got to know your P&L, you got to know your EBITDA, you got to know all that stuff, especially if you're putting yourself in situations that are obviously you're dealing with income, profits and loss. Like, you have to know how to navigate through those things. And some of them are easy, some of them are a pain in the ass. I mean, I'll tell you right now, a lot of the short-term rental stuff can be a pain in the ass with money coming in and out, especially with the property management side. It can be cumbersome. But Bill, dude, I appreciate you for being here, man. Where can folks find you at?
Anywhere online, Bill Faeth 73. That's Faeth on Instagram. I'm Faeth, Faeth. Pretty much everywhere else on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. My Build Short-Term Rental Wealth Facebook group. Whether you're getting started or you're experienced, the only thing we don't talk about in there is arbitrage.
Rafa's gonna be like, no arbitrage. Rafa's buying stuff now.
No, look, I'm not against it. I'm just not an expert in arbitrage. I leave that to like Raf and Sean and TJ and those guys.
That's funny. It's okay. People, we'll all talk about the arbitrage so that people can get started. And when they get to the point where they can buy and scale and build their own hotels and stuff, then we'll throw them in there. That way they can be a part of a good group.
Yeah.
So Bill, yeah, man, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. This was really, really good. I appreciate you, your insight. Yeah. I appreciate you being here. And thanks for making it work with the cell phone there at the end.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very grateful.